Right, today's brew is going to be a Centennial Brown Ale. So this is a pure extract brew. Now this recipe has kind of been adapted from one that I found online. Again, this is a recipe that was published on the homebrewforum.co.uk. So credit to the author of the recipe. I'll put a link to the recipe below in the description. But this is essentially an all-grain recipe that I have adapted to brew extract. So we're currently in August. There's a hosepipe ban on in Kent where I live, so I've got no way of cooling down a big pot of wort. So I'm going to try and keep the boil to a small size, perhaps about 5 litres. And not go through a cooling process, so I'm not going to be wasting any water. But what I have done is I've chilled some bottles of water, so I'm going to kind of put the hot wort, if you like, from the 5 litre pot into my fermenter, and then just basically put on top of that 16 litres of chilled water that I've had in the fridge, bottled water. So I'm not going to go through the kind of the cooling process in the pot, as it were. So I've adapted my method a little bit to suit this, and as I say, this is an extract brew rather than an all grain brew. Now the original recipe uses Maris Otter malt as the base malt. So what I've managed to get is this Muntons craft your own Maris Otter light malt extract. So I've not used this before. I've just used a different one from this range. This is a new range of extracts that Muntons have brought out. I've just used the Munich in a pale ale brew that I did, yeah, it turned out quite well. So I'll put a video of that. Well, you probably would have seen that maybe before this one comes out, but it turned out well anyway, long story short. So I'm going to be using these. They're sort of a high quality extract and allows you to kind of, bring a different dimension to your extract brews. So I'm going to be using that. I've got a kilo of light malt extract, so I didn't really want to try boiling this. So I'm going to use probably about half of a kilo, maybe in 5 litres. I don't know, I'll have to work that out. Maybe, anyway, some of this light dried malt extract in the boil. I'm going to be steeping some grains. So the actual recipe calls for 220 grams of light crystal malt, 200 grams, the original recipe asked for 200 grams of wheat malt, but I've substituted that for Dextrin malt because wheat malt needs mashing, and I'm not actually doing a mash, I'm just doing a steep. So 200 grams of Dextrin malt, or you can use Carapils, and 140 grams of crisp chocolate malt. Okay, so that's going to give it its nice brown colour. So I think this is kind of maybe what you call an American brown ale. We're using Centennial hops, which are obviously American, so it's going to be a nice hoppy brown ale, hopefully. I've not brewed this one before, so hopefully it's going to turn out all right. The comments actually on the post, everybody says that it's a fabulous beer, one of the best beers I've ever brewed. So fingers crossed it turns out well for me. So what I'm going to be doing is steeping these specialty malts in some hot water for about 30 minutes. I'm going to then top that up to 5 litres, bring it to the boil, add some light dried malt extract, and I'm going to be doing a 30-minute boil. So at 30 minutes, so at the start of the boil, I'm going to be adding 10 grams of Centennial, and then at 15 minutes, I'm going to be adding 20 more grams of 15 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes to go. I'm going to be adding 20 grams of Centennial, and then 20 further grams at 5 minutes to go, and then 20 grams as a 5-minute hopstand. So I'm going to let it cool down to 80 degrees, probably by adding a little bit of cold water into it. Get it down to 80 degrees, and then add another 20 grams of Centennial. So I'm going to do an aroma hopstand as well. So that is the plan. What I should also mention, what I haven't got on the table here, is also 220 grams of brown sugar, light brown sugar, which I'm going to be adding to it. And just to bump up the ABV a little bit to where it should be, I'm going to add 100 grams of dextrose. So this hopefully is going to come out at 4.7%. I'm going to be doing a 20 litre batch, so I should have pointed that out in the first place. And that's it. So that is the statistics for it. So I'm going to get this weighed out, start getting the grains steeped, and then get my boil on. All right, so that's it. I'll probably do a little bit of video footage on the way, and see you at the end for the tasting. Cheers. Okay, so while I've been getting my water up to temperature, about 80 degrees, I've weighed everything out. So I've got my grains here and my sugar, which I'm going to be adding on later on. So what I'm going to be steeping first of all is the chocolate malt, the light crystal malt, and the Dextrin malt, or Carapils. So I'm going to be putting that into like a grain sock. The easiest way to do that really is to kind of just stretch it over a bowl and tip it in. Don't try and kind of juggle it around. I'm trying to get in the narrow entrance. So just kind of add all my grains in there. Tie a loose knot in the top and dunk it in my water. Okay, so here we go. Fairly decent sized bag of grain there. So I'm just going to kind of dunk it in, get it going. And I'm going to leave this for half an hour. So I'm just waiting for my steep to finish, and whilst I'm waiting, I've just been weighing out all my hop additions. So I've actually got 4 hop additions for this. First one is 10 grams at 30 minutes, so that's at the start of my boil. I've got 20 grams at 15 minutes, and I've got a little bit of a Protafloc tablet going in at the same time. 20 grams at 5 minutes left of the boil, and then after flame out, so I'm going to turn the heat off at 0 minutes, let it cool down to 80. So I'll probably just add a little bit of cold water just to cool it down a little bit quicker. I'll be adding this last whirlpool addition and just let that steep for 5 minutes. After which I'm going to dump it all into the fermenter and top it up with cold water. Right, the half an hour's up. It's a lovely chocolatey brown, wonderfully smelling liquor left after this steep. So I'm just going to bring this grain bag out and just let it drain off for a few minutes. Okay, so now I'm just going to rinse off these grains just with a little bit of hot water from the kettle. Make sure I get all the goodness out of these. Just let that drain off for a few minutes, and then we're going to get the boil underway. Okay, so there's my nice steeped malt liquor. It looks absolutely lovely. In my larger pot, I've actually dissolved 500 grams of light dried malt extract in some cold water. So I'm going to combine the two. I'm going to actually do the boil in this larger pot, which is a 20 litre pot, just as I'll probably be getting quite near the top of my smaller one, and I don't want to risk a boil over because it's a right pain to clean up. So I'm just going to combine these two into one pot. And then get this heated up to boiling temperature, which is probably going to take me 10 or 15 minutes. Right, so we've got a nice rolling boil going on now. So we're ready for our first hop addition, which is the 10 grams of Centennial. So I've got it in this mesh bag, just so it's I don't get a load of debris going into my fermenter at the end. So I'm going to set that in there, and I'm going to leave that for 15 minutes. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes left. I'm going with my second hop addition, which is 20 grams of Centennial plus a Protafloc tablet, which I can't do one-handed, so I'm going to have to just pretend I'm putting it in there, okay? Okay, so 5 minutes, so I'm now adding another 20 grams of Centennial. Again, just pretend you see me put that in, I can't actually do it one-handed. Right, we've got a couple of minutes left to the end of the boil before I turn the heat off, so I'm just going to add in my brown sugar. Get that going, make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Sorry about the camera, it's very difficult not to burn the shit out of my hand and film. And now the Dextrose, 100 grams of Dextrose. Again, try not to let it stick to the bottom and burn. And try not to burn the shit out of your hand while filming. Alright, so once that gets to time, I'm going to turn it off. Okay, that's the 30 minutes up, so I'm going to turn the heat off, just move this off of the hot ring there. And what I'm going to do now is add my tin of malt extract. So I'm just going to kind of try and move this bag out of the way a little bit. Sorry about the camera work again. It's important to try and get this in off of the heat source, so I've waited for it to finish, otherwise it's just going to stick to the bottom and scorch. So I'm going to get that in there, stir it in, and then start reducing this down to 80 degrees for my final hop addition. Okay, so I've taken it off the boil. I've added enough sort of bottled cold water to just get the temperature down to 80 degrees. So I'm now going to put in my final hop addition and let that sit for 5 minutes. Right, that's the end of my hop stand, whirlpool type addition. 5 minutes is up. I've just lifted the bag out just to let it drain out because some nice hoppy goodness in there. And then I'm just going to simply transfer that into my fermenter and top it up with some cold water. So I've topped it up with cold water, so bottles of mineral, like spring water that I've had sitting in the fridge, and more luck than judgment, I would say. I've topped it up to 20 litres, which is the batch size, and spot on 22 degrees, so that's pretty much thereabouts for pitching the yeast. So happy days. So I'm going to get the yeast in there. I've already added a sachet of yeast nutrient in there as well. So I'm going to get the yeast pitched and get it into my firm fridge. Happy days, a good brew day. Right, here we go. Centennial Brown Ale. Let's see how it came out. So it's been in the bottle about 4 weeks now. So it's had a decent time to condition. Straight from the shed, it's getting a bit chilly out there. It's feeling very autumnal, so chilly my beer is lovely in the shed at the moment. It finished at 4.7%, so perfect, just how I like my beers, not too strong. I like to sup and have a few beers in the evening without getting too languid, so yeah, sort of ticked all the boxes in that respect. So let's get it open and have a look. I think I went for quite a low carbonation in this, roughly about half a teaspoon of dextrose in each bottle. I didn't want it too fizzy. I have a tendency to overcarb my beers, and it's a right pain in the arse. You have to decant it and then put it in. So I'd rather it be under than over. There's a slight hiss there, so it's carved. Oh, wonderful aroma coming out of the bottle already. Let's get it poured and have a look, see what it looks like. So this is actually the first time I've brewed a brown ale as such, so it's kind of traditionally an English style beer, although obviously the Centennial hops are American, so it's a bit of a hybrid beer. So yeah, interesting. It's brown. I hope you can catch that on the light. It's actually a real nice kind of nutty, sort of almost got a red tinge to it. Brown colour. It's not a kind of insipid brown. It's a really nice, attractive, kind of chestnut red sort of brown colour. So yeah, in terms of looks, absolutely spot on. As you can see, it's got a nice head on it, a nice sort of close, sort of foamy head, not a type of frothy head. It's got a nice sort of the sort of head you'd expect on an ale rather than a fizzy beer. So yeah, all right. So it's all looking good so far. I can tell you that actually wonderful aroma coming off it. Centennial is slowly becoming one of my favourite hops. So that was kind of one of the other reasons I was keen to brew this, despite there was tons of people on the thread of this recipe saying that it was a fantastic beer and one of the best beers they brewed. So that's the all grain version. So so yeah, that was one reason I brewed it, but also my interest was piqued because it was based around Centennial. So yeah, there's lots of boxes being ticked in terms of yeah, what I like in this beer so far. So yeah, it smells great, it looks great. So what does it taste like? Oh, it's delicious. It is so nice. It's obviously quite malty. There's a little bit of chocolate coming through. It's just kind of peeking its head over the top. It's in the background and it's not overwhelming, but it's there. It's beautifully balanced, this beer. I'm sure that the Otter malt extract has added a bit to this. It's giving it a bit more depth. There's a real sort of depth of flavour in this beer. The Centennial is just shining through. It's not overwhelming. Again, it's just beautifully balanced. It's not dry hopped at all, this beer. So it's just kind of the hops that are added in the boil. And it's, I think probably with a dry hop it might have been a bit too much. It's just about right. So yeah, really happy with that. As you can see, it's leaving a nice kind of lacy froth on the glass as I drink this, and this one's not going to be hanging around long. It really is a lovely beer. Nice kind of balance of malt and hops, and slightly unusual as well, being a brown ale. So, you know, something that doesn't get talked about that often, not particularly a fashionable beer. But I think that's the beauty of being a home brewer, is that you can kind of delve into the archives and you know, look at these styles and brew them, which, you know, brew beers that you wouldn't be able to probably find commercial versions of in the supermarket or whatever, or in your bottle-o. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's really nice, and I shall definitely be brewing this again. And it just goes to show that you can get fantastic beers by just using the extract and some steeped grains and a short boil. And I mean, this is as good as you'd buy in the shops. In fact, I'd probably say it's better than most commercial beers that you can buy in a bottle from the supermarket. It's actually made me really keen to try the all grain version, because I had to tweak this slightly, adapt it for extract brewing. So I'm actually keen to brew the all grain version true to the recipe to see how that compares. But this is fantastic for an extract beer, absolutely fantastic. And I've had some really nice comments about the extract brews I do, and you know, a lot of people like me don't really have a lot of time for all grain brewing, and extract brewing is a good alternative. Often snubbed by all grain brewers, but you know, you put that in front of anybody, and I can't. You know, nobody's going to tell me that's a bad beer, and I doubt anybody really could tell that it's an extract beer. To be perfectly honest, it's fantastic. So it's a 10 out of 10. I would highly recommend brewing it. It's great. Give it a try. And cheers. I'm going to enjoy this one.